Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 8th episode of Monsters of Our Dimension.
I'm your host, Kelly Gomez.
And I'm the co-host, Alan Moran. If you're a new listener, thank you guys for choosing us, and we're more than happy to have you guys here.
Exactly. So this week's episode is all about the supernatural. And I know it might seem like a random question, but would you ever hike after the sun sets? And I'm talking about like the hikes in like big mountains, like that are surrounded by like forests, like you're not going to see anybody or like any highways for like miles.
And we're talking about like beyond the sunset, right? Like we're talking about basically nighttime.
Basically.
That actually would be a very interesting experience. That sounds fun, don't get me wrong, but it's like I guess I would be more like worried about like bears and animals and stuff like that.
Well, it's scary that you think about that. I mean, obviously that makes sense, but for me, like I wouldn't, just because like when it comes to forest and like nighttime, it's you kind of feel like it feels like you're in a different kind of like dimension in a way. Like it gets very eerie. You can't see anything really, and it's just you. Let's say you're by yourself,
and the crickets and all the sounds around you. Everything is, I guess, I know what you're saying. I guess it's just like an environment that you're not used to,
and then your mind plays tricks on you, you start hearing things, like you might even see some things,
For sure.
So that's why for this week's episode, it really is about hikers' experiences. And more precisely, we're not the only ones to feel this way, because lately my TikTok For You page has been filled with supernatural stories about the Appalachian Mountains. And I never realized that people that like live near the Appalachian Mountains, they never go outside after sunsets.
Okay.
The locals, like, they have experienced things, and people that have traveled the Appalachian Mountains, they have experienced things.
So for people who don't know where the Appalachian Mountains, like me, like where exactly are the Appalachian Mountains located?
So I am going to get to that, but it's really big, and it basically goes across 13 states. So you're talking about like upstate New York all the way to like the top of Alabama.
Wow.
It's huge.
That's a lot of ground to cover.
Exactly. So,
anything can happen.
Exactly. And it is even considered like to be one of the most haunted places in America by the residents. So with that, let's dive into the supernatural occurrences that people have experienced. So our case sources are discoverwalks.com, wboy.com, themothman.fandom.com, ufoclearinghouse.wordpress.com, brownmountainlights.com, and blueridgeoutdoors.com. The Appalachian Mountain Trail is considered one of the most famous hiking paths in the United States and the largest hiking-only trail in the world. The Appalachian Mountains is one of only 3 major mountain ranges in the U.S. and is the oldest of the 3 ranges. This mountain ranges across 14 states, from upstate New York all the way down to Alabama. However, because it's the oldest trail, it means that it comes with several scary experiences by hikers, and of course, that comes with urban legends. I want to point out that because this mountain ranges across 14 states, several supernatural experiences are not centered on just one location. It ranges from various states, but it's always near the Appalachian area. And I want to start by discussing the most known urban legend that exists in the Appalachian Mountain, the Mothman. Have you ever heard about the Mothman?
I've actually seen like depictions of that urban legend in like cartoons and stuff. Like definitely in Batman, they have like a character called Mothman as well, who, basically looks like a moth. So, I mean, I can see it. I can see it.
But you've never heard like the backstory or like where it originated from?
No.
Okay. Me neither. I have heard about the Mothman, but not until researching this case where I really got to hear the origin story.
Okay.
So, since its origin from the 1960s, the legend of the Mothman has turned into a wide-known phenomenon. The Mothman has its own museum in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and it has even made it to Hollywood. In 2002, The Mothman Prophecies was released, which starred Richard Gere, who is most known for like Pretty Woman or Hatchie a Dog's Tales. Have you seen either of those?
No.
No? Oh my God, I can't believe you. To understand the origin of this urban legend, we must go back in time to 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. On November 15th, 1966, two young couples, Steve and Mary Mallett and Roger and Linda Scarberry, were riding around in Roger's car. Back in the day, that was considered fun, especially in small towns. Basically just driving around. So they drove to the TNT area, which was about 5 miles away from the city limits. So what is a TNT area? During World War II, the government created a manufacturing area for the creation of the TNT and explosives. It was a top secret area, so a lot of the residents that lived near there had no idea what was going on. When the war ended, the government left everything there and abandoned the area, which ended up contaminating a lot of the ground. And it creates the perfect scenario to this legend because the TNT area still exists today. There is a lot of weird equipment and oddly shaped building in this 3,000-acre area. So let's say you want to explore it in the middle of the night. It is a very eerie place. So based on Linda Scarberry's report to the police, Steve, Mary, Roger, and Linda are riding through the TNT area at around midnight. They are driving on a side road by the old powerhouse building. When they drive over this small rise in the road, out of nowhere, Steve yells at them to look at something weird that's in the middle of the road. When Linda looks at it, she sees this thing go around the corner at the old powerhouse. Based on Linda's description, this thing didn't run or fly. It wobbled like it couldn't keep its balance. It did have wings, but they were spread just a little. Linda hadn't noticed that Roger had stopped the car, but after a few seconds of them just sitting there in shock, Roger immediately took off. Linda kept yelling at Roger to hurry and drive faster. They had managed to get on Route 62 and were driving down the road when that thing appeared again in the middle of the road. As soon as the car lights hit it, it was gone. But this time, that thing did fly. Linda recalls that it spread its wings a little and went straight up into the air and was flying over the car. Roger was driving at least 100 miles per hour, but that thing just kept gliding back and forth over the end of the car. Linda could hear the wings flapping, as if that thing was picking up speed to try and keep up with the car. They were all terrified and kept yelling at Roger to go faster and faster. That thing finally decided to leave once they had made it to a farm that had lights shining at the gates. Roger kept driving through until they reached downtown and stopped at Dairyland. Linda recalls how they all sat there shocked, frightened, and not knowing what to do. Linda wanted to go to the police, but Steve and Roger, they just kept saying that no one would believe them and everyone would just laugh at them. After a while, Roger and Steve decided that they wanted to go back to the TNT area. I don't really understand because after experiencing something like that, like why would you want to go back?
No, yeah, totally. Like I said, it goes back to what we said about the plots of horror movies and stuff. Like, this is how it always starts. Like, you can't let curiosity get the best of you, but you know,
it did for them.
Leave it to some people.
Exactly,
and always get curious and want to go back. But
and it was literally just the boys. Like the girls were like no, like we don't want to go back, you know.
Yeah, this is why women live longer, guys.
Seriously. But like the only thing that I can think of is that they wanted to be sure like if what they saw was real and they weren't just like seeing things. But for me, like if it's 4 people that saw the same thing,
exactly, and you guys all experience the same thing, like how are you gonna say you guys are crazy?
Exactly, because it's not
4 eyewitnesses to this.
Exactly, it's not just you.
I mean, I guess they low key just wanted to relive the rush, you know.
Maybe. Mary and Linda kept trying to talk them out of it, and when they had reached the farm gate, Roger and Steve finally decided to listen and turn around. As they were turning, though, they all saw a big dead dog laying along the road. Once they had finished that 3-point turn, wham! That thing jumped and leaped over their car and went through the field on the other side of the road. At that moment, they all agreed to head straight back to get to the police. The police followed them back to the same road by the farm. The police were only about a half a mile behind them when Lisa saw it again in the field with its wings spread out a little, walking towards the car. Once again, it flew straight up in the air and came to the car. But as the police car's lights came closer and shined on their car, that thing just disappeared. They went up and down the road looking for it, but it didn't appear again after that. So this time, they decided to go into the police's car, Gary, and they had to drive back into town so that Roger can leave his car and get another police officer to come with them, Millard Halstead. So Linda, Roger, Mary, Steve, Gary, and Millard drove back to the powerhouse building in the TNT area. Once they reached the location, they sat there with their car lights off for about 15 to 20 minutes, just waiting. Linda then started hearing this squeaking sound like a mouse, but a lot stronger. And that is when a shadow went running across the powerhouse building, which was across from them. All Linda could see was these big red eyes. And she immediately told Millard, and he knew exactly where to shine the lights on that thing. As Millard kept moving the spotlight around, all they could see was dust coming from the ground. Clearly, that thing was avoiding the light. They all decided that was enough and left. When they got back home, Steve and Mary were terrified to go to their apartment, so both couples decided to stay together. Linda remembers how nobody went to sleep that night. They all had made sure to keep the lights on. The next day, they all went again to the powerhouse building, but this time, they went inside the building. And just like in any horror movie, everyone separated and decided to look around for that thing. And they got what they asked for, because Steve comes running out of the boiler room, pale, as white as a sheet, yelling he claimed that he saw that thing in the boiler. And I'm guessing that they decided to leave after that because in Linda's report to the police, she stated that that same night it was spotted at Thomas's residence. And at this point, everyone in the small town knew about the situation because Mary, Linda, Steve, Roger, and a few other people went looking for that thing. Linda states that they searched the area around the home, but they didn't see it again until they were on their way home, and Linda saw gliding it through the trees by one of the maintenance buildings. At this point, these occurrences had gone viral across the town of Point Pleasant because even reporters showed up the next day. Or they all went back to that powerhouse building, reporters included. Steve guided everyone to the last place he saw it, which was the boiler. But upon opening the boiler, it was open, and Steve swore up and down that he had shut it closed. But I don't think it's a surprise that that thing escaped. I mean, the sightings were still going on. And Linda even remembers the very last time she saw it. They were leaving the TNT area when she saw those red eyes again, but this time with its full form. To Linda, the Mothman looked just like a man with wings. The wings had a dirty gray color, and the wings spread about 10 feet. It had muscular legs like a man, fiery red eyes that glowed when the lights hit it, and it was at least 6 feet tall. She never did see his head or arms. Footprints were eventually discovered at the farm, powerhouse building, and Thomas's residence. And legend has it that mysterious men in black suits began visiting the town shortly after the sighting reports.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, when those mysterious men in black suits come around, it's for real.
Exactly.
Behind every conspiracy, I could say that, the men in black, are always around.
Always behind it. And do you think that, like, the background story of the TNT area and how it was an area used back in World War II and how it was basically they were using all these chemicals to make TNTs and explosives and how the area was contaminated? I mean, when I was reading this in my head, I'm thinking, okay, like, I'm thinking like radioactive, like something happened and then this creature, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know?
No, I mean it definitely makes sense, you know. You know what that reminds me of though? It
What?
reminds me of the movie The Hills Have Eyes, how like the United States were, you know, dropping nuclear weapons and stuff, like testing nuclear weapons in the desert and stuff, and then the locals got exposed to all that radiation, and then they became mutated and like very, I guess, angry, and they started eating people, raping people and shit.
Yeah,
That
that
movie
sounds
was,
about.
yeah, that movie was crazy.
Yeah, so it's a little familiar with that too, you know? So you really never know if that had a cause and effect on that
No,
area.
for sure.
And the sightings do continue on till this day. Back in 2016, a man who had recently moved to Point Pleasant was driving along State Route 2 when he saw something jump from tree to tree. He immediately pulled off the road and started taking pictures. And I mean, I guess you can argue that the photos were fake or that he knew about the urban legend, but he states that he had never heard about the legend before until he experienced that. And people in town have seen the photos and believe him. And I kind of wanted to show you one of the photos that I was able to recover. And I mean, like, you know, yeah, you're right. People can argue that it might be fake. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, it's very debatable. But who knows, you know?
Does it look fake? Like, I don't know. It's
I
just
mean,
those
it could
things.
pass. It could go either way, to be honest. It could pass as real, though.
Yeah,
Definitely, you know. And then people gonna say it's fake, so you never really know.
that's true.
It looks legit enough to me, though.
You think so?
Yeah.
In the pictures, you can clearly see that this thing has wings with pointed tips and long legs, which I will post a picture in our Instagram so you can see for yourself. And I got to give it to these people because they have some serious courage to either look for it or to stop and take pictures. Because if I something weird like that when I'm driving alone in a secluded area, like I'm not stopping.
Neither am I.
Yeah. Sightings of the Mothman have also happened at the Chicago's O'Hare International Airport near Lake Michigan. On September 24th, 2020, Manuel Navarrete of UFO Clearinghouse received the following report from a woman who said she seen a 7-foot-tall red-eyed creature after leaving work at the United States Postal Service. The woman left her job at about 11 p.m. As she started walking to her car, she saw something standing at the far end of the parking lot, which was where her car was parked. At first, she assumed that it was a very tall person with a long coat, so she just kept walking to her car. As she unlocked the car, it caused the headlights to come on, and the headlights hit what she had assumed was a person that was standing about 20 feet away from her. It caused for it to turn and look right at her. Quote, I saw that this was not some person, but some red-eyed creature, and what appeared to be a coat were wings which spread out as it turned to look at me. At first, I thought it was some kind of very, very large bird, but I've never seen any bird that stood almost 7 feet tall. I'm 5'4", and this thing looked taller than me by at least 2 feet. This thing then started making some type of chirping sound, almost a half chirp and a half click, like someone was clicking their tongue but much, much faster. It then made some type of screeching sound and took off running toward me. It got to me within 10 feet and it just took off into the air and flew above me. This woman goes on to explain that she was hysterical and had crouched down behind her open car door so she could dive inside her car. She immediately took off and drove home where she told her husband what had happened. Her husband worked at that same facility and he confirmed to her that the sightings that were going around were true. Believers of the Mothman think that is a bad omen, only appearing when catastrophe is about to strike. The most infamous sighting of the Mothman was on December 15th, 1967. Locals said that they saw the Mothman flying over the Silver Bridge. Shortly after the creature was spotted on the bridge collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. An investigation was done into the disaster, and it was concluded that a fracture in a suspension chain was the cause. Now, I'm not sure how many people claimed that they saw it, but it sounds like it was quite a few eyewitnesses with the same experience. To me, unless they all got together and schemed, it's bizarre how all of their experiences were the same.
Yeah, like I said, maybe once or twice can be a coincidence, but when it starts happening more than that, it's not a coincidence anymore.
Exactly, and it wasn't just like one person or like two persons. Like this was multiple eyewitnesses. I don't know if they were together. I'm assuming that they were somewhere near apart, but obviously within the vicinity of the bridge. But the fact that so many people had that same eyewitness, I mean, I don't really see how you can all, like it's just too much of a coincidence.
No, I feel you. But I mean, if that guy or the Mothman does live in that area, he has, a lot of places where he can hide. I mean,
Yeah,
those mountains stretch as far as you say they do, then it's gonna be hard to catch him. Like he flies.
exactly.
I would wonder if the government actually caught this thing and if it actually existed, and like what do they do with creatures like this?
Well, I mean, not to like tie it in, but with the whole UFO situations right now, I mean, like, if they hit this for a very long time about UFOs, even though a lot of us probably already knew that they existed, why wouldn't creatures like the Mothman would not exist, Like,
Yeah.
you know?
You ever seen the movie the Cabin in the Woods? You remember where
Yes.
they had like beds and stuff, and then under the cabin they had like all those mythical creatures that we were always talking about. And like that movie's theory is that like the government actually captured all of these creatures already, have them in like a secret facility, and then obviously the whole backstory of like how you gotta sacrifice like the virgin, all of this stuff, or else the giants that live beneath the earth are gonna come out and destroy everything and stuff. But the part that interested me the most was the fact that like they caught all these creatures, all these crazy creatures and stuff, like nightmare fuel stuff, like like all the werewolf, like the Sasquatch, the fairies, remember when all of them just started dying down there, like even
Yeah.
the fairies were killing them. Every mythical creature that they ever wrote every urban legend about was caught in that facility. So I found that very interesting. I'm like, yo, what if?
I did too, especially, what they say about Hollywood movies. There always some hint of truth in
Yeah,
them.
exactly. No, it definitely makes sense.
Exactly. This next supernatural experience is called the Brown Mountain Lights. This occurrence is near Brown Mountain in North Carolina and has been seen by many hikers, visitors, and locals. Since the early 1900s, there has been reports about some strange lights. All the reports are about the same. Every witness has described this phenomenon essentially almost the same. They are said to look like stars and move either slowly or quickly like fireworks. These lights appear in the sky and in the trees. They have even been experienced by so many people that it has been studied by students at the Appalachian University, private groups, and even the United States government. The U.S. Geological Survey investigated this phenomenon, and in 1922 they published an extensive report, which it is available online on Google. They concluded that the lights were a combination of automobile and locomotive lights, lights from natural brush fires, or light emitted from other explainable sources. While the timing of the study might make sense to these possible answers, this legend dates back much farther than the time of cars. So a lot of people feel like this theory does not hold up. Many possible theories that have been speculated over the past 100 years. When the lights started showing up, people thought that it was just train lights, but in 1960, a massive flood wiped all the train tracks in that area, and the lights still showed up after. The locals started to panic a bit because clearly that theory went out the window. So they assumed that it was people doing campfires or driving, but when you get to that exact location, there really is no one that could live there. There aren't even roads for cars. Based on people's experience, the lights move with you if you see them, and campfires are pretty standstill in one spot. So that also debunks those theories. The most popular theory is that it deals with the extraterrestrial. And the reason why it's become so popular and accepted is because no one has been able to give a proof-based answer. There's this eyewitness account. Her name is Cindy, and she has seen these lights 2 times. The first time was about 20 years ago when she was standing on a range to the left side of the Brown Mountain overlook when red lights started rising somewhere near a peak. At first, she thought that they were airplanes, but they just kept rising and started moving towards her and her parked car. Then suddenly as they came, they disappeared. And I've seen videos about these lights during the day and at night, and you really can't explain it. I mean, it's a lot easier. Like, hearing it and seeing it are entirely two different things. And I am going to show you just so you can kind of like have a preview right now about it.
It's before. In 2000, he captured these dancing lights on the side of the mountain.
So it's something that you have to see for yourself, and I really highly encourage that you guys go watch it on YouTube. I will also try to include pictures and try to even find a video that I can post on our Instagram. But the fact that no one has been able to give concrete proof on what is causing this is the craziness about it. This phenomenon is so popular that even Hollywood has been inspired by it. The lights were featured in an episode of X-Files in 1999 titled Field Trip, and the 2014 movie Alien Abduction was inspired also by these mysterious lights. If you want to visit and see the lights yourself, locals in the area state that even though they are random, the best times to go are during the fall and after it rains. Would you be down to visit it one day?
Definitely. Can we go to that TNT area?
Oh my god, in Point Pleasant? Oh my god. I mean, during the day, yes, but like at nighttime, like the Mothman is gonna show up probably.
No, let's go at 12 o'clock at night.
You're crazy.
Just bring a lot of like flashlights.
What would you do though? Like if, let's say we actually went and you actually like saw something that you can't explain, like.
I'll be like, take my girlfriend, let me live.
I hate you. I hate you. The Appalachian Mountain Trail can be desolate, remote, and is surrounded by thick forest. Hikers who have covered long distances in the trail have encountered some very unexplainable things. Could it be that the mind is playing tricks, or that these encounters really did happen? I will leave that up to you. This hiker's experience is called the Scorched Man. In 2011, a man decided to take a week off from work and hike the Appalachian Trail alone. Days into the hike, everything was going well until he experienced something so frightening that he has never forgotten. One night, after hiking all day, the man decided to set camp for the night. He was inside his tent when he heard some noises. It sounded like someone or something was approaching his tent, but he never got bothered by the noises, nor did he decide to check what the noises were, which is smart. The next day, he continued hiking and finished his day by once again setting up camp. As he was relaxing around the fire pit, he looked up and saw a man standing near the firewood. The man's hands, body, and face were badly burned. He could still see the smoke rising from the man's face. The hiker was so shocked that he didn't know what to do but just stare at the scorched man. The hiker was numb from fear. The scorched man just kept staring at him before walking away. Once the hiker felt that he was alone again, he packed his belongings and left the area quickly. But in a matter of minutes, he came across a burned down house with sheriffs surrounding the place. When the hiker asked one of the sheriffs what had happened, he was told that 4 days before, an entire family had been burned alive in the house. Was the hiker hallucinating, or was it the ghost of one of the family members? What do you think?
I mean, unless the hiker has any mental health issues that I'm aware of, I don't think that he's crazy. I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that the ghost of a family member was still, among them, especially somebody that dies horribly like that. They can't really be put to rest. So I think that, yeah, like maybe that family is just cursed to roam the earth until either they find peace or something happens. I don't know how that works, but
I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I think that either that scorched man was just trying to maybe one last goodbye or something. I don't know. I hope that family ended up finding peace, but it was scary.
yeah.
This next supernatural experience deals with the Civil War. In 1862, 3 major Civil War battles were fought on different locations on what is now known as the Maryland section that is along the Appalachian Mountain Trail. With war comes death, and sadly many soldiers did lose their lives. It is said that because the soldiers died in such brutal ways, many locals believe that their spirits are still roaming in that area. Hikers that have passed through the Appalachian Mountain Trail in Maryland have reported several creepy stories. Some of them recall seeing ghost soldiers, odd campfires, and the sounds of cannons blasting in the distance. There is this path where most of the battle and bloodshed took place. It is said to be overwhelming. Hikers sense a lot of dread and just heaviness. Daniel Weiss, who owns a farm right next to this pass, believes that the bodies of 58 soldiers were tossed down an old well, which has caused Daniel to have seen many ghost soldiers wandering around his farm. And I don't think that's far-fetched. The ghost.
Yeah, I just find it messed up. Like, why would you throw 50 soldiers down a well, yo? Like, that's messed up.
I mean, remember that war movie that we just saw not too long ago, and how at the beginning of the movie, they were literally dumping a lot of that soldiers' bodies just on top of each other.
Yeah.
During World War II, I'm sure that the same thing happened here. I mean, not World War II, but the Civil War, I'm sure the same thing happened here, They're in the middle of the war, and it's sad to say, but they just treated them like
disregarded bodies.
Exactly, They were just
corpse,
they were just oh, let's get rid of these corpses where we got a war to deal with,
Yeah.
So I want to discuss the Mothman. Do you believe, or do you think that Linda, Steve, Roger, and Mary faked it?
No. But like I said, it's one of those things where I feel like you have to experience it yourself in order to actually fully commit to it. But I mean, me personally, I feel like a secondhand, third-hand experience of it is more than enough. I don't personally know how I would, react if I saw some shit like that. Probably the same way, but I would definitely wouldn't go back 2-3 times trying to look for it again. It'll just be a story and a memory among the rest. But I don't believe they're crazy. Definitely not all 4 of them.
No, and I agree as well. And I do want to talk about Linda's feelings. After those experiences, she has stated that she had some serious PTSD after that. She stated how her life was affected. She had to take sleeping pills because she was scared to go to go to sleep out of the fear. She didn't like the dark after that experience happened, so she always made sure to have the lights on, especially during the night. And Mary and Mary and Linda have even stated that they had tried to speak to a minister, but every time they tried to talk to one of them, they would literally get laughed at. Like, no one believed them, like even ministers. And you would think that people that deal with the church would be probably the only people that would actually believe you, but even they didn't believe it, which is, when I read that, I was like, okay, that's very surprising.
Yeah, no, it's very rare. I mean, a lot of people just haven't experienced that to give advice on how to cope with it. These are like once in a lifetime experiences, and yeah, for those people that were traumatized by these type of events, it's just you got to learn how to cope with it and help other people that probably will eventually have the same experiences.
Yeah. I know that every time people read about supernatural experiences, and I get it, it's human nature to want to like not believe into these things, and people are like, oh, like he's just lying, oh, like it's fake, oh, like he just wants to get money, right?
Yeah.
But if it really was true, no one ever thinks about the after effects. Like, some people really can't cope well, and you never know, like these experiences might really make or break someone, so that's just a thought. And do you think that aliens are behind the Brown Mountain Lights?
I mean, I can't say yes, but the idea tickles my brain.
Yeah.
Definitely some alienish behavior for sure. But who knows? It could be a cult. It could be aliens. I mean, the video was just a little too far to like really make any clear observations or anything like that. So I can't really just out myself and say, yeah, I believe it was aliens.
Why do you say cult? Like, how do you think a cult could come into place?
Well, cults are always moving very mysteriously and very silently. It's always a bunch of them. They always go into the forest to try to do rituals and stuff like that. So, like I said, I wouldn't rule it out. But like I said, I can't rule out aliens either. Aliens probably could look for secluded areas. I mean, if I was an alien, I probably would go to somewhere rural, like a forest and stuff. Try to live among people, because they're definitely not gonna be in the cities roaming around. So
Yeah.
makes more sense to go into like a very large area where people won't be able to find you.
Yeah. And with any supernatural experience, it's harder to believe unless you experience it for yourself. And the Brown Mountain Lights are just that, like, I mean, I've watched the pictures, I've seen the pictures, and it's, yeah, I mean, the fact that no one has been able to give actual proof-based answer, that's what gets to me the most. But how I said, going there yourself one day, and if you get lucky that night and you actually get to experience that, that's a whole nother thing, And there was this other legend that I didn't include in today's episode, but because we have already spoken about it, and I didn't know it at the time, but the Appalachian Mountain Trail passes through Dudley Town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So back in episode 2, we had covered the infamous case about the lost town, which is Dudley Town, Connecticut. And the fact that the Appalachian Mountain Trail passes through it, like, now I'm like, okay, makes a lot more sense, and that town's experiences is definitely not no coincidence.
No, it definitely connects a lot of dots too. A lot of supernatural activities going on, a lot of weird sightings along those mountains. It's actually a very interesting place to go visit. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. I kind of want to visit it now, but I don't know, Isa. I don't think I would ever want to hike after the sunset or like even camp or anything like that, because like you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you would.
I'll probably go like right when the sun, like try to get back before the sun sets for sure. But like try to cut it close at least.
A little
Get
close.
a little adrenaline going.
I'm done. I hate you. But so thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5. So thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. It just really helps the podcast just get out there and get, recognized by the algorithm.
Yeah, especially if you guys are first-time listeners, definitely spread the word. We're trying to grow with you guys. And yeah, keep liking, keep checking us out, and yeah, see you guys next time.
Yeah, we really hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and of course, we always want to hear from you. So please feel free to like email us and like just leave us comments on our Instagram or wherever you feel like. See you soon.